Hi, this is John. Welcome back to my channel, In John's Universe. Today I want to talk about something I'm sure that's on everybody's mind. With the economy being the way it is right now, with food prices going up and gas prices unstable and everything else, I'm sure a lot of people could use some extra money. I know as myself, as a baby boomer, an older person, I can use the extra money here and there to do a couple things that I'd like to do and whatever. What I wanted to talk about today is five things that I used to do for side hustle money. And I still do some of them when I have the chance. Now, number one is eBay. Number two is yard sales. Three, flea markets, mystery shopping, thrift shopping, at thrift stores where I actually look for things that I could sell, on eBay or something like that. And I haven't done that in a while, but I'm going to give my perspective as far as what I think is a best way that an older person or actually anybody can do and make some extra money right now to help out, even if it's $100 or $50 a week. Money is money, and that's all that counts in this day and age. Now, let's talk about eBay first. eBay's been around for a long time. I think it started in 1996 or something like that. I've been a member of eBay where I first got on to become a seller on eBay back in February of 1998. So I've been selling on eBay on and off for 26 years now, 27 years. And, eBay has evolved quite a lot since it first started. It's much easier to get your listings up there. It's simpler. However, they get fees, and the fees have gone up over the years, and shipping has gone up over the years, and everything related to eBay. Right now, my rating is over 2,036, I think, of positive reviews. And I know maybe a quarter of the things that I sold on eBay has gotten reviews because people just don't leave a review or a rating. And sometimes that could hurt you. But right now, like I said, I got over 2,000 reviews, and they're all good, no negatives that I've ever had. And I'm proud of that, which means to a prospective buyer that I'm a reasonable upfront seller that I could be dependent on. All right, now you have to have something to sell on eBay. eBay is the largest online selling venue as far as an auction or a buy it now format. There's two formats. You could put something up on eBay, say you put your phone up on eBay, and you could say, I want $500 for this phone. And you can make it a buy it now where somebody can come in and say, hey, $500 for that phone. I'm going to buy it and I'm going to buy it right now. So the instantaneous thing is to click the button that the buyer would do, and they bought that item and they pay through eBay right now. Or you could put it on an auction format where you could start the bidding at say 25 bucks, and hopefully you'll get it up higher than the what you had wanted for it. And that's a risk that you take. So I personally put everything as a buy it now. I don't put auctions up there anymore. Auctions to me is kind of risky. So that's why I don't do it anymore, because you never know what you're going to get. And once you sell it for that amount, you're obligated to sell it. All right, so you have to have something to sell. I'm sure if you start decluttering all the stuff that you've been accumulating all these years in your attic, in your basement, in your garage, you'll come up with a whole bunch of stuff that you'll want to sell. Now, your first instinct is, well, I'll put a yard sale out there and I'll put it out in front of my driveway and I'll run a yard sale Saturday and Sunday of this week. Yeah, yard sales are great, but yard sales are not going to bring premium dollars for the item that you want to sell. Now, you're going to hope to, say you put a vase on there or a Pyrex dish or something like that, that you can look and you can see sell prices that have sold on eBay for that particular item. I'm sure if you do some research you can find just about anything on there that's sold that you may have. All right, now suppose you see something on eBay that's sold for $30. eBay is going to get roughly 13 to 14% of it. And then you're going to have to, people like it, the auction or the buy it now, to say, hey, shipping is free. People like the idea of free thing. So hopefully you can build that into the cost of your item. But if not, you're going to wind up paying the shipping. So a heavier item is going to cost you more to ship. And it depends how you ship. Uh, post office is probably the most reasonable way right now. And I know postal rates are going up. Everything is going up. So you hopefully you're going to get more than you have put into the item. If it's something that's been sitting in your attic for years and years and years, you have no use for it. It's not worth anything uh, to you. But if you can get 30 or 40 bucks for it, that's all well and good. Now, you might say to yourself, well, I'll put it out on a yard sale. Yeah, that's the first instinct, because then you don't have to ship it or anything like that. The buyer can take a look at it. Now, let's get back to that specific item. Suppose that Pyrex dish sold, the last sell for that item on eBay was 30 bucks. And you're going to say to yourself, well, I want 30 bucks for it. You're going to put it into the yard sale items, and it's going to be on your table. And somebody's going to come along and they're going to say, oh, I see you want $30 for that. I'll give you 15. So you're not going to get $30 for it, because yard sale people are looking to do the same thing that you're doing. They're looking to buy something inexpensive that they could turn around and flip. So the whole thing is buying and flipping. And the same thing with thrift shopping. Sometimes you'll buy something for yourself that you'll need and you can find it at a thrift shop. But a lot of times it's buying something and turning it around and flipping it. Now, with eBay, there's a couple of things that you must know. Start by selling things. If you haven't already started selling on eBay and you start up a new account, sell things that you already own, so you don't have any expenses there. When you list it, take good pictures, put a good description on it. If there's any chips or cracks or imperfections in the item, make sure you list it. And again, eBay is very simple to do. You just follow the format that they have out there for you. Then you'll get your money, less the fees, not the shipping fees, unless you use eBay shipping, and that's a horse of a different color. That it's a lot of it has changed, but eBay shipping, if you use their shipping format, you usually get a better price on it, and they take it right out of the amount. So if the person pays 30 bucks for it, you're going to get whatever the eBay fees less the shipping fees, and you go from there. All right, now I'm not really going to get into eBay that much more because it's not complicated. It's just time consuming, and you need to check it out for yourself. You need to look at it and how it's going to work, and if it's going to fit into your thing that you want to do, basically. All right, now, as I mentioned before, you have to have items to sell on eBay or your yard sale. So you can either look around your house and your attic and basement, garage and stuff, come up with things to sell, or you could start hitting yard sales. Now, yard sales is a good source of product, I should say. Now, the old philosophy is put a price on every item. Uh-uh. Every time I've done a yard sale, even when I was selling at a flea market, I did not put a price on it, because somebody will come along and say, hey, that's $5. I'm going to offer him 3. And then you're going to negotiate. But if somebody comes up to you and say, how much is that item? Well, I don't know. How much are you willing to pay for it? They're liable to say, I'll pay $6 for it. And then the negotiation's over. You can either say, yeah, that's great. Or you can say, well, I was hoping to get $6.50 for it. And they may acquiesce and give you that $6.50. But most of the time, you're going to sell it for six bucks. But it sure beats putting a label on it and you're stuck at that number. Now, in negotiations, You can always go down, but you can't go up if you have the price listed. So if somebody said, well, I'll give you $5 for it, you can say, yeah, either I'll take it or I want 5.50. You can go up for, a little bit. But if you have the price for $5 on there and people say, hey, that's $5, well, I'll give you $4 for it. You can always say, no, it's $5, but you can't go up higher than $5. So don't put prices on things like that. And at a sale, expect to sell or buy things cheaper. You can always negotiate, and you just have to be smart in how you do it. It's simple to do, and it's the same thing at flea markets. When you go to a flea market, most flea markets, they have a reputation. There's some that are junky flea markets, and all you're going to find is junk at these flea markets. And there's some that have or whole weekend sellers. They'll come in and they'll set up on a Friday night and they'll be ready to sell Saturday and Sunday. And it's a reputable flea market. And a lot of them are, but there's some that are just fly by night flea markets that you're going to get people just selling junk all the time. And it just doesn't matter. You're not going to find a lot of good stuff there. Sometimes you'll find a diamond in the rough, uh, but again, there's enough of the better ones out there, and you can research your local area to see where the better ones are. Now, when I first started selling at the flea market, I started in the back, in the daily section. I would come in there on a Saturday morning, and the reason I started selling, it's got a whole bunch of junk in the house. And where I lived, it had a restrictive covenant where you couldn't do yard sales. So I'd load everything up into my Jeep. I had a Cherokee at the time. So I'd pile everything up into the Jeep and I'd get to the flea market and get a space in it for people who just come in on an occasional basis. And I'd set up, and people would show up as soon as I opened up the back of the Jeep and say, "What do you got in there? You got this, you got that," and so forth and so on. So people do get to flea markets early because they're all looking for bargains, and it's amazing the stuff that you could sell at a flea market. I was set up next to a guy one time, and he had a half a bottle of Aqua Velva cologne, and I said to him, Bob, how the hell are you going to sell that? He said, you'd be surprised. He said, people buy anything. And this guy, that's what he did for a living. That's how he supported himself. He would go to find things on the side of the road, people are going to throw out, or go to the recycle center. And if he could pull something out of the recycle center, if they let him, uh, he would put it into his car, and that was it. That's how he earned his living. And then he had a bald tire. And I looked at that tire and it had a split in the side. And I said, Bob, how the hell are you're not going to sell that? Again, he said, you'll be surprised. Lo and behold, somebody later on in the day came and bought that bottle of Aqua Velva for $1. Okay. And I says to him, I said, Bob, where'd you get it? He said, it was in somebody's junk pile. So he paid nothing for it and he sold it for $1. And then somebody came along and bought the tire. And I heard Bob say to him, what are you going to do with the tire? Well, I'm making my daughter a swing in the backyard, a rope swing. So I need her for that. He sold that tire for $5. Again, he picked it off the side of the road and he sold it for $5. Now, when you sell at a flea market, uh, at the end of the day, suppose you sell $200 worth of stuff. Don't forget, you have cost involved. You have the cost of the space. You have your expenses to get there. All these little ancillary costs uh, come into play. I remember going to the flea market and talking to some of these guys. How well did you do today? Well, I sold $500. I made $500 today of profit. I said, you profited $500? And they couldn't understand that the profit means what you paid for the item versus what you sell the item, less your expenses also. So if they sold $500 worth of stuff, they may have spent $300 to acquire that stuff, and then another 40 or $50 for the space for the day and for their gas to get there and wear and tear in the vehicle and everything else. So maybe they made $150 for the day. And over the course of an 8 hour, 10-hour day, that's not a lot of money, but they were happy, and that's all that counted. And they made some money, and that's another way you can side hustle some money. Now you could thrift shop. I give you for instance. I walked into a uh, Goodwill one time, and it was early in the morning, and they had just finished stocking the shelves. So there was a thermos there, and it was missing the stopper underneath. The thermos was there, and the cap was there, but it didn't have the stopper. But looked like a complete unit. So I took it up to the counter, and I said to the woman, because it wasn't marked, I said, "How much is this?" She says, $1. I said, "It doesn't have the stopper." And she looked at me. She said, "All right, I'll give it to you for 50 cents." And then she looked at me. She said, "Are you a senior?" I said, "Yeah, at that time I was 55 years old or older." She says, "Well, that's another 10% that you can get off because Thursdays and Fridays are senior days." I said, "Oh, all right." I said, "Look, I'll just give you the 50 cents. That's no problem." So I gave her the 50 cents. Later on that day, I got home and I checked it out on eBay, and one with a stopper on it sold for about $175. The outside of the thermos that I bought was in mint condition, no dents, no scratches. Uh, the cup that on the top was in great shape. So I wrote a description of it, put it on eBay. Ultimately, it sold for $75 back then, and that was about 20 years ago. So I made a lot of money on it. I also picked up one time at a yard sale. At one time, you used to be able to, when you bought a car, they would run promotions. And I know Pontiac at one time, if you bought a GTO a long time ago, you would get a little die-cast GTO model. This was back in the 60s, they would give these out. Well, I found one at a yard sale. It was mint in a box, no scratches on the car itself. And I said to the person, I said, "Well, how much you want for this?" He said, "Well, I'll take $10 for it." And I shrugged my shoulder. I said, "All right, I like GTOs. I had a muscle car when I was younger. How about $8?" She said, "Yeah, that's fine." So I gave her $8, got home, put it on eBay. Well, actually, I held it for a couple of weeks, and then I said to myself, "Let me see what the heck this thing's selling for." So something similar sold for about $170. So I put that GTO on there. Uh, the model was perfect. The box was in great shape. Little discoloration, but nothing of any great shakes. That thing sold for over $230 at that time. So there are things that you can find that you could turn around and you could sell on eBay, or buying at a yard sale and taking it and going to the flea market and doubling and tripling your money. You just have to work at it. Nothing's easy. They're not going to hand it out to you and say, "Hey, just because you're here, I'm going to give you this amount of money today." No, you got to work for it. So you got to be smart. You got to be a little bit aware of what's going on. Back then, we didn't have smartphones when I started doing this stuff, and it was just gut feeling. Hey, I like that. I bought it. I didn't pay a lot of money for it. Some of the items that I bought were ultimately junk. I wound up throwing them out. But my losses were maybe $5 or $6 or whatever the heck it was at the time. And compared to the amount of money that I did make, it was a significant amount. Now, what you want to look for in yard sales, you want to look for old clothing. Vintage clothing does very well on eBay right now. Let me see. I have a list. Let me get to the next page and see if it has it on there. But I can do it from memory because from experience, I know what sells. Uh, you got to look for anything vintage cookware, like Pyrex, uh, anything of that nature. Board games. Make sure that they have all the pieces in it, though. Make sure the box is in good condition. Tools. especially old tools do very well. So if you're looking in a yard sale, look for that kind of stuff. Look for costume jewelry, vinyl records. Vinyl records still sell very well. Anything electronics, even if they're older, people like to collect that kind of stuff. And as I mentioned, vintage clothing or name brand clothing or shoes. That's what you should be looking for. And if you don't want to go to the flea market to sell it on eBay. Start an account on eBay and do it. And you can do it from the comfort of your home. Now, the only thing I caution you about eBay, I would always put free shipping. Again, I mentioned that before. Free shipping is an enticement to the buyer that, hey, I could buy something and I get it shipped for free. They don't have to worry about the shipping cost being, applied to it. So keep the items not to the point where they're so cumbersome to ship or so heavy to ship, because the bigger the box, they're going to start charging you dimensional weight. The heavier the box after a certain amount, it's going to be exponentially more expensive. I don't know what the rates are anymore. I haven't sold on eBay in over a year. I know shipping costs have gone up just like everything else, but you got to factor in your cardboard, you got to factor in your tape, your packing material, and anything else that goes into getting that product ready to send out to the buyer. So always keep your receipts too. Another thing I want to talk about is mystery shopping. Now, I did mystery shopping, maybe 15 years ago. I was always looking to make extra money because I was just starting out in business and I didn't have a lot of money to run this little store that I'm running right now. I had retired from the pharmaceutical industry, and I retired early, and I couldn't find a job in this location because I had moved from California and New Jersey. We had moved from New Jersey to California back east, and I couldn't find a job without commuting again, and I wasn't going to commute. So I decided, to make a long story short, to start my own little business. And I started selling Beanie Babies at the flea market. And that's how I got into this business that I'm into right now. It's actually a collectibles card shop. But during the course of the flea market, uh, my stepson at the time said he wants to buy a car. So I said, well, how are you going to get the money? He said, well, I'm going to get a job. I said, I think I know a better way. And he said, what? I said, I got an idea. So we started making birdhouses and bird feeders, and we would make them all week long. I had the tools, the proper tools in the garage, and some of the materials I bought, some we sourced from other homes that were being constructed. And, they always have a junk pile of wood that you can usually go. And if you asked, I'll let you take some of those scrap pieces of wood away. So we developed a birdhouse bird feeder regimen, and we would produce. We would work all week. We would make these things, and then we'd go to the flea market on Saturday. Some Saturdays we sold out, and we would still be coming home on Saturday night making some more birdhouses and bird feeders to take to the flea market the next day. Then I came up with which I thought was a revolutionary idea. I got this uh, wire mesh, this heavy wire mesh. It was diamond shaped. And I found a distributor down in Georgia that would sell me a couple of rolls of it. And it was excess stock that they had. And all I did was take two fence post caps, one on the bottom, one on the top. The bottom was fixed. I put it together with rivets, put a rod through it with push nuts so it wouldn't come out, where the bird would sit on it. And these fence post caps were, like this, and the cylinder fit in there. And then I put a top on it and ground the top off where it wasn't sharp, and the top would come off where you'd be able to fill the bird feeder. Well, the first time I went to the flea market, I think we had 25 of them. We sold all of them, and we sold many, many more afterwards. And we were doing pretty good on it. However, one day I saw somebody down the aisle in the flea market, and I said, to my stepson, I said, go find out what they're doing. So he came back and he said they're selling Beanie Babies. And I looked at him. I said, those are those things I think that mom is buying your sister. And he says, yeah. So I went down there myself, and everything changed from that point on. I didn't have to make anything anymore. All I had to do was find Beanie Babies, turn them around, and flip them. So that's what I did. I would first week afterwards, I had 30 Beanie Babies. That was when Beanie Babies was really hot, and I sold all the Beanie Babies. The next week, I had 300 or 400 of them. And I sold them all, and I went through three different size trailers. My stepson had enough money to buy his car, and one day I said, I can't continue lugging this trailer around all over creation anymore. I'm going to open up a store, and that's what I did. I opened up a store selling Beanie Babies and used toys, which I sourced out of yard sales and flea markets. I would clean them up, put them in the store, and a lot of the things were old toys that I would pay $1 or $2 for, and then sell them for $15 or $20 or more, depending upon the age of these things. But then one kid came in one day and he says, "Can you get Pokemon cards?" I looked at him and I said, "What the hell are Pokemon cards?" And the rest is history, and that's why I'm in the card business now, and I've been doing it ever since. It keeps me going. It's fun. But getting back to mystery shopping, I should say, I needed money at the time, and there was still bills to pay, and the flea market wasn't paying enough of it. So during the week, I would do mystery shopping. I signed up with a company, and there's a certification that you had to get, and I passed the certification. I think it's either silver certification or gold certification, which a lot of other companies contacted me through this uh, certification company saying, "Hey, we understand you're a silver certified or gold certified." I can't remember exactly which one it was. It was 15 years ago, and I would get job offers, and it didn't pay a lot of money. And I remember doing eight, eight mystery shops in one day for Harris Teeter, which is a food store that's a part of Kroger right now. It was all in a general location. It didn't pay a lot of money. I think it paid maybe $10, each one that I had to do. And I had to buy something, and they reimbursed me for it. So the problem is I would get home and then I'd have to write up these reports, and I'd be doing reports for up until 1 or 2 in the morning on the computer, sending in these mystery shopper reports. But it was fun, and there's some good companies out there. What I would do is do a search on Google and check out the reviews on some of these mystery shopping companies and sign up for yourself if you have the time. uh, you have the ability to get around. You don't want to travel too far because, again, it takes money to do so, and you don't want to do one in one town and then have to do another one where you travel 20 miles away to do one in another town, because it just doesn't make sense. It's not going to make the payment worthwhile, let's put it that way. But that is a way to make money, mystery shopping, and it was fun. You have to have a good memory. You have to uh, talk to people. You have to react to people. You have to see how they're doing their job, and you have to make a report for the questionnaire that you're going to be put in front of you by the company that's doing the mystery shopping for the location. But I did Home Depots. I've done Lowe's food shop stores, and I've done Lowe's home improvement stores. I did an AT&T store one time. Uh, so there are companies out there, and I don't know how prevalent it is right now with the budgets being strapped with a lot of companies. If they're employing mystery shopping companies to go in and see how their stores are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But yeah, do some research on it. But that's another way you can make some money. All right, let's see. I think I got. Let me make sure. I think I got just about everything that I want to talk about. Yeah, I mean, I talked about thrift shops. Yeah, I found, and let me get back to thrift shops a bit. Some of the bigger thrift shops, like Salvation Army and the Goodwill stores, they know what they're getting in, and they're going to price their items accordingly because they make money, especially Goodwill. So what you want to do is you want to look for the little thrift shop, maybe your church or some other organization or the school is having a thrift shop weekend or something like that in their cafeteria that you see a flyer for, but get there early and be looking for things that you can sell, probably on eBay or Facebook Marketplace. That's another place right now that you could sell. But eBay is going to be your widest ranging audience because you'll have buyers potentially from all over the world. Now, you don't have to ship all over the world. There's other ways to circumvent that. Right now, I only ship to domestic customers because it costs more to ship, especially overseas. And I found out that there's some countries that you don't want to ship from or to because uh, they're going to claim didn't get the item, and it's a hassle to try to disprove that. But I think eBay's taking care of that. They have their own system right now that I guess you can avail yourself to. Again, I haven't gotten on eBay in a while, so I don't know how this works anymore. All right, so that's it for today. If you like what you're hearing, put it in the comments and subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate it. If you want to get notifications of the next video that I'm going to do, hit the little notification bell and get back to comments. Do you have any other ideas that I could share with other people about how to make money, how to make a couple extra bucks? Every little bit helps. Uh, and any type of comment, whether it's, and I mentioned this before, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I'm going to look at and I'm going to respond to it. And I appreciate your input. It's going to make me better. Even if you criticize my presentation, I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to minimize looking at the script and reading from the script anymore. It's sitting right here in front of me, and I'm trying to paraphrase. I'm looking to the side and trying to paraphrase what is written down, and a lot of it I'm doing it from memory. But again, my memory isn't worth a damned anymore. But put it in the description, put it in the comments if you have anything that you want to say. I'd appreciate it. And help me out, subscribe to this channel. I want to get monetized, and it's fun to do these YouTube videos. I look forward to enjoying it. I wasn't going to do one today. I just came into my store to clean up a little bit, and because I had to go out and buy some things that I needed at the big box stores for supplies for the store. And I said, I'm going to do a YouTube video today because I want to do it. So that's why I'm doing it. And it may not be polished, it may not be 100% as to my standards that I wanted. It's the best that I can do today. And that's all I can ask for myself. So, again, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And you have a good day. Thank you.